We have a sickness. Our insatiable lust for power, for control. This uncaring existence urges us to seize whatever reins we can and pull on them so hard, with all our might, till eventually they snap and we lose control. Here I am, my reins snapped, in a sea of dead men and women, no longer a soldier, no longer loyal. And I cannot help but reflect upon myself, as perhaps a way to soothe whatever demon stirs in my soul, to show it that despite what I am, I was once human. It begins in my childhood. I watched men take my father, my sister, my mother. While I did not see it, I remember the 3 shots as the men tied me down and loaded me into the back of a truck. Such is the life of a Skuldra initiate. Young children donated to the cause. I was old enough to hate, and as I bellowed out my anguish, it filled the gaps running through me like magma. But a boy with hatred so foul in a body so small was not fit to stand against his kidnappers. So all I could do was listen. To turn a child into a soldier, they must be broken and rebuilt. For days they would feed us enough to live, and then they would make us fight. Here my hatred was well applied, and I beat the others black and blue. The bigger ones gave me trouble, but I would not allow them to better me, and so even they fell. Every fight I kept sight of the generals, so they could see me cleave through every child in my way. It was lost on me how non-threatening I was to them. If anything, I made myself all the more of a Skuldra asset. Ruthless, focused, but still a child, and still naive. I was showered with praise and adoration I mistook for genuine affection. It meant that when they beat me for missing a verse in prayer or slouching as I stood, I was no longer filled with hate, but with acceptance. Yes, I thought, that was wrong of me. I deserve it, I reasoned. It will make me a better man. When I was old enough, they took me away from the other boys and girls and brought me to the place where they trained their best acolytes. This place, a fortress of immense size, was filled with young men and women moving in formation, firing weapons with precision and ease, sparring so brutally that the losers wheezed and spattered blood out of their mouths. I had been accepted into a family, one that saw me as a perfect child. I met a man named Simon, the man in charge of the fort and the highest ranking Skuldra I would ever meet. It disgusts me how kind he was. how charismatic and caring he was. How many times I saved his life. Simon smiled when I met him and hugged me, formally welcoming me to his home. Hours later, I was taken to my bed and told to prepare for my training. It was here I learned about Skuldre's most cherished weapon, the Klvro. The liquid ran bright through the pipes and sat in vats throughout the fort. Not only did they train their soldiers here, but they manufactured the Klvro. As I trained, the smell of it would sting my nostrils and my skin would tingle. The generals would laugh when I winced at the smell because they knew I would soon grow to love that feeling. A good Skuldre soldier is twofold, fearless and devoted. I thought I was both, but it was not until they brought me to the conditioning chambers that I learned what it meant to be both. Endless screaming. The scent of burnt flesh filled the rooms. I was brought beside a vat of diluted Klvro and strapped to a chair. It was natural for me to resist as the two soldiers grabbed my hands and forced them into the vat. The Klvro corrodes, liquefying nearly any soft material, including flesh. But the content of this vat was weak enough to prolong the process and halt it once my hand was removed. I cried. For the first time since I was a child, I cried. I begged Sol and Lua, I called for them to give me strength, and then my hands were taken out. I stared at them. They were like red starfish, splayed out and shaking. Before I could think, they dunked my hands in again and again. I screamed. My body had been slowly dipped into the Klvro, different parts on different days, ending with my face. Layers of skin peeled off at different intervals, leaving behind chemically altered dermis. My nerves had been dulled. Generals would strike me with mallets and maces, and while I would still jolt, I would not writhe. They had other men beat me, and then I would beat them. And when my face had peeled away, Simon met with me and he smiled. "You are ready," he said, handing me my uniform. I sat in the back of a truck again, not as a scared, hateful child, but a hardened, disciplined soldier. We raided buildings, taking hostages in the name of protection. We gunned down dissidents and monsters. One block at a time, we seized the city. Simon was with me every day. My commander, who I dutifully followed, who whose back I watched when he tortured families, whose body I covered when shrapnel threatened him, whose praise I desired like nothing else. I was pathetic. I would have continued like that, the good little lapdog of a man feigning love. And the change in course was all because I decided to turn my head and watch. Simon took us to the home of a man they suspected of aiding terrorists. A family man with 2 children and a wife. Simon told me to wait outside, and at first I did what I was told. Then I heard chaos from inside the building, shouting and crashing. Nothing I hadn't heard before. But it was the cries of a child. Not the whining or the lamentations, they were cries of defiance. The child had such malice in their voice. They swore like a sailor and threatened Simon's life. The reason I turned around and went inside is because deep within my soul that boy pulled me out. I was suffocating in an effervescent sea, corroding away, and the hatred that boy had pulled me out. I walked in and saw Simon about to execute the family. He smiled and asked me to help him. The boy looked at me with such hatred that I snapped. I raised my rifle to Simon's head and unloaded. I was quickly apprehended. The generals debated on how they would kill me, how to make an example out of me. But it was Victor, a man I only ever saw in shadow as ropes held my head down, that decided a different fate for me. After they knocked me out, I woke up in the Black Site lab, a place I had heard about but had never seen. A place where people go in and animals come out. They would not let a good soldier like me go to waste. They would extract all of that rebellion, that fighting spirit, and leave only ruthless devotion. I struggled at my binds, but they were too tight. A man in doctor's robes approached me, and in his hand he had a syringe. He pulled down his mask and told me to be still. He told me that my fate is not to die or to be changed here, no. Whatever the Sculptor had planned, he told me that it would be undermined. I saw then behind the man the Sculptor doctor, a clean shot in his head. He lay stripped of his clothing. I had no choice. Whoever this man was, his intention seemed better than that of the Sculptor. I let him plunge the syringe into my arm, and before long, I felt the effects. Deep writhing in my soul, a change to my biology. It was like a fervent burns, but deeper. The serum warped my cells and rearranged my insides. The binds holding me down started to tear as my strength increased, and before long I tore my way out. I pulled together whatever clothes I could find and whatever armor had been left and ran. I heard the terrified wailing of others in the lab, their voices like howls as I ran and stumbled my way through. Some soldiers saw me lumbering and started to panic. They saw in my eyes the hatred I had once forgotten now burned brightly. They ran for the exit. When I found myself outside the lab, I was in a courtyard, surrounded by soldiers. An execution then, it seemed, as I was not taking to their treatment. My body was still being changed. The armor I wore sunk into my skin and weaved into muscles. The soldiers opened fire, and I charged. With blinding speed, I cleaved men down. One by one, their bodies were split in half. A group of women jumped on me from the railings above and held me down while they stabbed me with the fervon-filled syringes. I felt the burn, and my body went into overdrive. Whatever metamorphosis I was experiencing was determined not to let a little bit of green liquid stop it. I stood up and shook the women off, before ripping them in half all the same. I lost track of time, slaked in blood and corrosion. I found myself where I am now, standing in my grand betrayal. Now I peer down at my body and see that my broken frame has been rebuilt. No, I have been reborn. I hear the faint tune in my head, a warm voice singing a song. It felt like a memory I did not have, as if the demon that stirs inside me, knowing now what my life has been, aims to soothe me. My name was lost years ago. They call me K926, my designation. But I feel another name lives deep within my soul. That name is Kullervo.